I've been anxious for this speech for 434 days. I know it's exactly that long because 434 days ago, my brother got married and I had to give his best man speech. I was panicking. Somehow on the day of, I got up there and I got through it. As I was walking off, I started to feel it. I was about to take a calming breath. I was about to relax. And then Dylan came up to me and goes, "Not bad, need to step it up for my wedding though." Thanks a lot, Dylan. So this is my best shot. Hope is what you want, man. My name is Zach. I am the best man. I met Dylan 25 years ago. However, he was not the first person in his family I met. Now it sounds like I'm jumping straight into best man speech cliches, but I first met and had a crush on his twin sister Lainey. She did not reciprocate those feelings. I remember thinking, if Lainey doesn't want to Cotton Eye Joe with me at the Claire Barton Parkway dances, I just have to settle for a quarter of a century friendship with her brother instead. And I'm sure as shit glad I did, so thank you, Lainey. Dylan and I hit it off right away. We love to do everything together. But if you asked our 5th, 6th grade selves our favorite way to spend an afternoon, we both would probably tell you is at the Cabin John Mall. You see, often one of Dylan's parents, David or Hope, would drive us to the Cabin John Mall where we'd go to Hall of Fame sports cards and collectibles. We would buy pack after pack after pack of sports cards, hoping for the big money card. For those of you who don't know, buy a pack of football or basketball cards, and you hope one is an autograph, a game-worn jersey, or a coveted rookie card worth a lot of money. Eventually, we would cut our losses short, a skill Dylan would soon forget, and we'd go next door to the McDonald's where we'd get as many Big Macs, large fries, and apple pies that we could afford. So essentially, we risked it all for a big gamble and then overconsumed. 2 problems that have followed us for the rest of our lives. David, Hope, if only you could have taken us to, say, a library and a sweetery. I might be able to fit into an Excel and Dylan would have a savings account. I'm teasing. I love Dylan's family. Always have. And that's why when Dylan called me in the summer of 7th grade and told me he was going through a difficult family change, I remember being really upset. Now I know I was supposed to be consoling him, and I hope I did to some degree, but I vividly remember he picked up on that and asked me if I was okay. And that's a point I'd like to circle back to in just a bit. So we were off to high school. Now I'm not going to stand up here and try to rewrite history and say our group of friends were the smartest, the funniest, the most popular, but I can say, without a doubt, we were the very best in the entire school, maybe counting, at avoiding interactions with girls. We were good at that. You see, our method was every Friday and Saturday night, without fail. We'd go to one of our friends' house, we'd lock ourselves in the basement, and we'd play Texas Hold'em all night long. It started as just $5, $10 buy-ins, but as we grew to love the game, it became $100, $200, $300 buy-ins. Our parents had no idea how much money they were losing. Then we'd take some money out of the pot, and we'd buy a bunch of Domino's pizzas and 2 liters of soda. All right, David, Hope, as I was saying that out loud, I realized those nights had to be worse for the development of our future problems, so I'm letting you off the hook for those Cabin John visits. That's my bad. So avoiding interactions with girls, you might guess that we have low social confidence, self-esteem, and that's probably true. But there was one area that was never the case for Dylan, and that was on the basketball floor. 2 high school games that perfectly depict this. Dylan, was it just 2 games you asked me to tell everybody about? One, and we heard about some of these last night. One was junior year. Dylan didn't play almost at all that year. But we were the defending state champs in the playoffs on the road, and our star point guard, not mediocre point guard, David, Antoine White got in foul trouble, and Dylan was forced into the game late in the toughest of situations. And what did Dylan do? He made play after play after play and genuinely was the catalyst that turned that game around and led to victory. I remember being so happy to be Dylan's fan that night. Then senior year, the county picked one game to film to put on television. Now, granted, it was a public schools channel that nobody watched unless you were looking for a snow delay. But it didn't that matter. The cameras were rolling, the lights were bright, so what did Dylan do? He put up a career-high 30 points against Northwest. Mark, that's one more time you have to hear it. Because Dylan's always been confident in his basketball abilities. So much so that if you speak with Dylan this evening, I can guarantee you 3 things. He will thank you for coming. He'll unfortunately try to show you his tattoo. And he'll tell you that he whooped your ass in a 3-point contest. Steph Curry could be in attendance this evening, and I still make that guarantee because that's how confident Dylan is in his basketball abilities. So then we were off to college. Some of you may have picked up in the beginning of the speech, I said I met Dylan 25 years ago. I didn't say we've been best friends for 25 years. That's because at this time our friendship took a bit of a break. So to symbolize that break, I just want to do a quick side anecdote. I recently took a philosophy class. On the very first day of the class, the topic was changing identity and when is somebody's identity considered completely changed. The topic the textbook, or the example the textbook used was a boat. So for this speech, we'll call it the Borgita. And it asked, if you replaced the floorboard of that boat, would you consider it a completely new boat and rename it to the Borgita 2? I think most of us would probably say no. Then it asked, what if you replaced every floorboard? I'd still say no. So then it asked, how much has to change until you consider it a completely new boat worthy of the Borgita 2? And I remember sitting in that lecture thinking to myself, the same thing you are all thinking right now. What the hell is the point of this? But then I started thinking about Dylan. You see, Dylan's changed more than any friend I've had. The best friend that I told you I became best friends with 25 years ago, he said he was going to live on the same street in Bethesda, Maryland his entire life. He was scared to travel. He was scared to fly. Like I said, we definitely lacked social confidence. And he never demonstrated any kind of academic or entrepreneurial ambition. But today, Dylan is a leader and innovator within his industry. He's a podcast regular. He's a social media influencer. He's traveled the world. He's lived in all kinds of places. He's hosted the biggest events with the biggest celebrities. And he's got more swag than anybody I know. So has Dylan completely changed? Is he the same person that I became best friends with? Well, I have my answer to that, but to prove it to y'all, I gotta take you back to that break in our friendship. Woo! The break was my fault. I went down a path of substance abuse and addiction that got really dark really fast. I had people in my life that enabled it. I had people in my life that ignored it. Dylan didn't do either of those things. Dylan went to my parents and told them the choice I was making, how I was living. And together they staged an intervention. At the time, I was furious. My best friend had betrayed me. I see some of you shaking your heads pretty quickly, and that's because you know now, like I know now. Not only was he not trying to betray me, he was trying to save me. The other realization I've come to know is that of all the choices he had at that time, and I'm not saying any are easy going through that, but that had to be the most difficult decision on the table. He had to know that could lead to confrontation. He had to know that could lead him strain in the relationship like it did. But it didn't matter because he thought that was the best decision to help and support his friend. Fast forward a few years later, my mom was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Dylan flew from New York City. Dylan flew from New York City to Wilmington, North Carolina to be with me and support me at that time. Shortly after, my mom passed away from that disease, and Dylan flew from New York City to where I was in Austin, Texas, to be with me and support me at that time. And then my mom's funeral was in South Florida, and Dylan flew from New York City to South Florida to be there with me and support me at that time. So has Dylan's identity completely changed? From the 12-year-old boy who was going through a tough time himself but was still concerned with how his friend was doing, to the college kid that made the most difficult decision on the table because he thought that's what was best for his friend, to the man that's proven time and time again there is no barrier, be it time, distance, money, that'll prevent him from being there for his friends. Dylan's true character has not changed one damn bit in the 25 years that I've known him, and that's why he's my best friend, and that's why I love him. Dylan, this is usually where the best man speech, the groom gets a low blow so we can transition to saying something nice about the bride, like you're marrying out of your league or punching out of your weight class, but after everything I've just said, that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, so Sammy, I'm just going to say it. You are incredible. I knew that from the moment I met you. It was at a Mount St. Mary's basketball game, sitting in the front row, yet it was hard to pay attention to the game because I was too enthralled in my conversations with Sammy. She immediately radiated positive vibes, love, energy, compassion, smarts, funniness, everything you would look for in a life partner. I do remember there were a lot of mysterious calls made by the referees that day, but there was no mystery why my best friend had fallen in love with this one. So Dylan, Sammy, as you set sail on this journey, not on the Borgata 2, but rather the 2 Borgatas, I'm just thankful you let me ride as a guest on the top deck from time to time, because there's nowhere I'd rather be and no one I'd rather be with. I'm so happy for you two. I love you two. Cheers.